good afternoon, good evening, maybe even good morning, and welcome back to the Online Racing League Season 14 Round 2 as we make our way to Zandvoort in the Netherlands for the second round of Season 14. I'm Yusuf Milky Serial Bin Sahil, and as per usual, I am joined by Jacob Alada Hancock. So Jacob, how are you doing this wonderful Sunday morning? Sunday morning? Sunday evening?
Sunday evening, indeed. Yeah, I was doing fine Sunday morning. I'm doing even better Sunday evening because we got a race, which is always something that will pep up my mood a little bit. And yeah, for sure. Very much looking forward to the race here today. We had a cracking race last time out for the first round of the season at the US Grand Prix Short. So I don't expect things to be any different here at Zandvoort.
Yeah, and speaking of that opening round in USA, it was a bit of a familiar face, one that ORL viewers of old would recognize at the top of the standings. Didn't really show up, I don't think, at any of the races last season in Season 13, but it was Daniel Berejne who took the win ahead of Ben Sabokonyi and Alvaro Caraton, all three of which are racing tonight here at Zandvoort.
Indeed, yeah. And Danny definitely took the win in style, in comfort, one might say, as well. There were a few laps at the very beginning where we thought maybe there's going to be a bit of a race of it for the win here. But Danny, after about, it was about 6-7 laps into the race, he suddenly just bolted. And he talked about it afterwards. He said he saw one mistake from Daniele Haddad, who was the car behind. He saw him just have one moment of oversteer in the traction zone. And from that point on, he'd been saving his ERS, and that was the moment that he just went, and he didn't relent until the end of the race. And it was really very impressive to watch indeed. Won by about 8.5 seconds margin at the end with penalties included. So, yeah, it was a really great performance from him.
Yeah, and USA is always one of those tracks that comes to mind as one of Danny Berejne's strongest circuits. But here tonight, we're at Zandvoort, and is probably on the complete opposite end of the spectrum compared to USA. Tight, twisty, a real driver's circuit, but when it comes to overtaking opportunities, there aren't a lot of them.
Indeed, but that was actually something that was interesting about the US Grand Prix short circuit, was actually the overtaking opportunities were far less than what you usually see, because the big long back straight, which is the primary overtaking spot at the end of that straight, at least at the normal circuit of the Americas, that was completely nullified because that straight became very, very short indeed. So it was actually quite a different experience to the usual US Grand Prix, but even with that only one major overtaking opportunity like we have here in Zandvoort, the drivers were still able to make it work and find places to make moves.
Yeah, and as you say that, we are hopping on in for qualifying here at Zandvoort, and we saw Danny Berejne looking dominant. Do we think it's going to be him on pole here in the Netherlands?
Well, I mean, it's hard to bet against him, right? I mean, he did look a cut above last time out, but he's got some stellar competition. You've got Daniele Haddad, who was having some wheel issues last weekend as well, apparently. So hopefully he's got those sorted. He might be able to give a good challenge. Sven Zerner was very discontented with his qualifying performance last time out. He felt he had a lot better in terms of qualifying pace within him. And I think he also really felt, I don't think he said as much, but I think he really thought he could have won that race last time out. So he'll be expecting to bring the fight to Danny Berejne as well.
Well, Sven Zerner is on his outlap right now, making his way down into turns at 12 and 13. This is kind of going to be the last moment of the outlap before you really have to push through 14. And then once you're through 14, it's flat out 105% pushing all the way on your lap before you complete that first lap. 16 minutes of qualifying remaining. Everyone, it seems, has headed out of the pits already, with the exception of Arsene Kardinov, and they are all on soft tyres as well.
Indeed. So let's take a look then at Sven Zerner as he goes for the opening lap of this qualifying session, and braking hard into the carousel turn 4 here. One of the funnest corners to drive on the F1 calendar, in my opinion. It's quite difficult to get it right, but it's nice because there are different lines that reward you in different ways. And just this sort of, you can't feel the G-forces, of course, in this because it's a sim, but you can imagine them when you go into that corner. It does feel like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it does indeed. Into Sector 2 now for Sven Zerner. Pull the car all the way over to the right-hand side of the track for turn 11. Get on that power. DRS wide open now as you approach a Sector 3. And this is where you can gain and lose so much time. Have to really ride the curb on entry through 12, which is exactly what Sven Zerner does, and then patient on the throttle through 13. and into 14. Stay away from the curb because it just unsettles the car, and nice and tight all the way through 15.
Tidy lap then from Sven Zerner as he comes across the line and obviously goes fastest for the time being. But of course, I would expect to see that lap time being bested at some point through the remainder of the session, not least by Danny Berejme. And it looks like it's already actually been bested at this very early stage. So not standing up to scrutiny quite that well. Joni Tormala going to the top of the left. Jody Capua in second there. Ahead of Daniel Haddad, though, so Sven Zerner can be relatively pleased. Danny Berejme goes up into second place. Joni Tormala was one driver who I think will be very, very disappointed with how the first Grand Prix of the season went. But this is looking a little better for him in the very opening stages of this qualifying.
Yeah, indeed it is. Finished a P10 last time out. Ben Sabo Konyi, your season 12 champion. Sorry, your season 11 champion. What can he pull out? And it seems that he's not too happy with his lap, but it's a 1:08.1. But I was just wondering why he let the car all the way out. Maybe there's a few more hundredths for him. Either way, P5, I'm sure he'll be fairly pleased with that lap.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Nothing too much to complain about there for Ben Sabukonyi. Of course, podium sitter last time out. He's going to be pretty happy with that opening round for sure. He was one of only two drivers with his compatriot, Danny Berejme, of course, who avoided corner cutting penalties over the course of that race. They were the only two drivers in the field to do so. And that is in a very, very strong field as well. So, yeah, that's definitely a decent trophy to have on the mantelpiece. He'll have an easier time of matching that feat here today, as we've already discussed. On board with Lucas UK at the moment. He's just coming back into the pits after invalidating his first attempt. He had a great qualifying last time out as well. Snuck up into third position at the very dying moments of the last qualifying session in that Red Bull. So the race didn't quite go to plan, but the qualifying was good. So he'll be hoping for similar antics here in this one.
Yeah, and let's see what Lucas UK can pull out. The only driver on the entire field who is racing on a pad. Lucas UK, absolutely phenomenal on a pad. How he does it, I do not know. But, you know, he gets right up there with the big guys. And he'll be hoping to bring home some points for the Red Bull outfit. And Anita is getting ready to start his hot lap. One of the 6 drivers yet to complete a lap. And if he doesn't want to be finishing last of all of the guys who've put a lap in, he needs to go better than a 1:08.993, which is what Pablo Jogla put in.
Indeed, yeah. And Andy, actually someone who I do think did have a good race last time out, particularly in the opening stint of the last race. He was able to keep within the DRS range of the front few cars, or at least the mid-battle, I seem to remember. Some really big names he was keeping up with there. So for a guy that's basically stepped up from being a primarily split B driver last season, I think Andy can be very, very happy with how the US Grand Prix went. Managed a points haul, I think came 8th across the line at least in the US Grand Prix short. And here he is into turn 1, and he's not going to be so happy about his entry to that corner. A little bit of a lock-up and running a little bit wider than he would have liked away from the apex there. Now into turn 4, locking up again, but gets the car turned in nicely, so I don't think it cost him any time whatsoever at letting him through here, as he is, of course, on a push lap here in the Ferrari. And now this back section of the track, which is so much fun. It's like a roller coaster, this part here, and fully committed all the way through. This corner, you can always take it faster than you think. Got a bit of a four-wheel drift on in the middle of that corner, actually. Didn't make the apex. And again, through 10, not quite meeting the apex either. Or through 9, I should say. And going through 10, that's all looking all right. Slight correction on the exit. So he's not finding quite as much grip as he would like in this Ferrari, but it's not too far away.
Yeah, and Jacob, I wonder if it has looked a little bit scruffy. We've been seeing lockups and, well, Andy being really aggressive with that steering and throwing the car in. You mentioned that kind of four-wheel drift, so I wonder if this is a case of not looking quick or being a bit too aggressive, but still being quick. And for Andy, across the line is a 1:08.4, and you'd have to think, Jacob, maybe a few more tenths available for him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, it's not the best lap time in the world. It's only good enough for 9th, and there's several drivers yet to post a lap time, so he might well find himself falling further down the order. Not to the hands of Arsene Kardinov, who only manages to go up into 15th there in the Red Bull, but nevertheless, Andy, the fact that he made some very clear mistakes on that lap, and yet it was still reasonably quick, does suggest to me that he will be able to comfortably get into the low 108s at least come the end of this qualifying session if he can just neaten up that lap. So he has that potential within him, and I think that's a better way to be attacking the rest of qualifying, knowing that your banker lap wasn't your best and that you can go faster.
Yeah, we just saw Matthias Colligan go P10 with a 1:08.3. Lucas UK on a hot lap. Him and Mr. Ate Kaupanen are the only two drivers yet to complete a lap, as Lucas UK really dancing with the track limits on the exit of 14. And for Lucas UK across the line, 1:08.2, but it was invalidated.
Yeah, and that's the second time he has invalidated, and I think he's the only driver to have invalidated a lap thus far this qualifying. Not 100% certain of that, but he is struggling a lot more than the rest of the drivers with those track limits right now. There's Ate across the line with a 1:08.185. Not a bad time there for the Renault driver. It's very, very tightly packed there. You can just see second place is a 1:07.926, and then he's only less than 2/10 behind, or just over 2/10 behind, sorry, and he's down in ninth.
Yeah, it's a super close field, less than a second separating everyone. And if you look from P2 down to P17, you're talking about 7/10. Make that 6/10 now as Kutic drops down a little bit down the order as Pablo Joglar puts in a 1:08.4.
Yeah, 1:08.4. Still only good enough for 15th, though, for the McLaren driver. So he'll be wanting to improve. Danny Berezne has already set a lap time on this set of tyres. Not sure if he invalidated or just didn't improve, but he's still sitting down in 5th at the moment. So the idea that he might go fastest in this qualifying session coming a little bit under fire here right now, as Alvaro Carreton just popped himself up to the top there in the Williams. Good news for him. He managed 5th in the qualifying last time out, so a pole position would be a welcome change from that, I'm sure.
Yeah, Ben Sabacogni on a push lap of his own, currently sitting down in P7 on a 1:08.117. So he's over a 10th down on Daniele Haddad. Can he at least chip at that gap? Well, he's 900ths up at the end of Sector 2.
Yeah, he's actually just narrowly ahead of Patrick Sipos right now. Another Hungarian driver, several in the field, and 3 of them in the top 10 at the moment as well, in 5th, 7th, and 8th. Here comes Ben Sabacogni up towards the line then in the Renault. Where is this going to put him? It puts him 6th, so he moves up 1 position at the cost of Daniele Haddad, but not too much improvement there for the Renault driver.
Yeah, and we're talking about 400ths from Joni Tormala in P3 down to Danny Haddad in P7, so really, really close in that battle for 3rd place. And then it's a bit of a jump, 2/10 down to Patrick Sipos. And as I say that, I think Arsen Kardanov, is he on a hot lap? No, he's still making his way back into the pits. What about Joni Tormala? No, he's got no ERS running either.
Yeah, no, just heading back into the pits, or some of them already heading back out of the pits as well on outlaps for either their 2nd or 3rd attempts of this qualifying session. Everyone very resolutely using the soft tyres here. No one tempted to go for a different tyre to start this race on, at least at this stage. As at the moment, it's both the Red Bulls at the very bottom of the order, with both of the Alpha Tauris up in 3rd and 4th. So the sister team definitely getting the better of the senior partners there, as Joni Tormala currently in P3.
Yeah, and Joni Tormala on a new push lap. Let's see what that Sector 1 Delta time is looking like. He needs to be finding a 10th to jump ahead of Alessio Di Capua in P2 into Turn 8, my favorite corner of the circuit. Just that slight lift, that slight downshift, and Joni Tormala 700ths down on his previous best. So he needs to find something special in the final 2 sectors.
Yeah, and Turn 9 didn't look all that special for him there. He just ran a little bit wide at the apex, and I think it would have cost him a little bit of time. There's Danny Berezne on the left-hand side, letting him through well before the braking zone hit. Jump across that inside curb, but not too much, as it will unsettle you, and then avoid the curb on the left-hand side, the long left-hander, like your life depends on it, through the final corner. Again, not quite as tight to the inside as he might have liked, and I think he might have invalidated on the exit there. And in fact, he is going to head back into the pits.
Yeah, into the pits he will go. Alessio Di Capua is on a lap. He's making his way into the final corner, and this might just be his last lap of the session. He might just have enough time to get back into the pits and go back out, but what will it be for Alessio? 1:07.981 and a 10th down on his previous best.
Yeah, so a lot of drivers not really finding a whole lot of improvement throughout the session here. Actually, quite a few of them are just still sitting on their initial time as their best time at this stage, which isn't something we see all that often, but it shows that all these drivers were really on it from the very get-go there. There's Danny Berezne, who's going to have to be on it to keep that one out of the wall. Indeed, he does. That was a big moment there for the Hungarian.
Yeah, and it's, again, this is why I like, Turn 8 so much. You've got to be so committed into it. you just have to have so much faith in your car. And Danny Berezne, he had the faith in his car, but the car just could not stick. And, you know, it's just the difference, maybe 2 miles an hour less of a corner speed, and he might have been able to get it to stick on the circuit.
Indeed, yeah, and that's going to be very, very frustrating for him. I wonder if it happened early enough in the lap that he'll be willing to go again on the same set of tyres or not. He might not have the fuel for it even. As currently on board there with Getton very briefly, who was one of the drivers promoted into Split A from Split B last season, finished, I think, second in Split B in the standings in Season 13, and didn't manage to make it to the opening race of Season 14, but he'll be looking to prove himself here. Currently sitting down in 13th, but ahead of the likes of Matthias Collegon, so I don't think he'll be too unhappy with that. Matthias Vipic just comes across the line and only goes up into 17th. So the Mercedes driver who had a rough time of it last time out, struggling once again.
Yeah, Arsene Kardinov is on a lap, has a little bit of a moment with the rear end, and he's a 10th up at the end of Sector 1, but he needs to find 3 tenths if he wants to gain a position, currently behind Pablo Joglar in that McLaren.
Indeed, yeah. Arsene, again, it was turn 10 that was the big issue there, or turn 9, I should say, for Arsene Kardinov. Just couldn't quite get the car turned in time. And I think he lost a significant amount of time through there. Does still seem to be pushing on this lap, so evidently doesn't think all is lost. And with a 1:08.726, you can still make a mistake and be able to improve, that much is for sure. Again, just a slight mistake there of taking some of the grass and the dirt on the right-hand side. That'll just scrub a tiny bit of time away from you. He does improve significantly, but not by quite enough to go ahead of Pablo Joglar out of that.
Lucas UK 8 seconds up at the end of Sector 2, 1:08.2. That's enough for P12. So a decent lap coming in from Lucas. Will he have enough time to do another lap? We'll have to wait and see. Also, Matthias Collegon, he's jumped right up the order, showing exactly what pace he has available to him, putting in a 1:07.824.
Well, there goes some of the positive feeling for Getton that I was giving him earlier by saying at least it's ahead of Matthias Collegon, because now he is emphatically not. Collegon with a great lap there from the Frenchman to go right up the order on his second lap on that set of tyres as well. Up into second, he goes. Lucas UK has finally been able to set a lap time, and a decent one at that. The 1:08.212 puts him into 12th for now, but I would still expect to see a few more jump ahead of him come the end of the qualifying session, and that might be all she wrote for Lucas UK, actually, given that he's still out on track on rather used tyres now, can't head back into the pits quite yet. Is VSR Psych just starting up a flying lap in the Racing Point.
Yeah, and speaking of last chances, this is going to be Sykes' last chance, or, well, maybe not. He's not happy with that first sequence of corners, so he's going to back out of this. He'll have enough time to do a second out lap, but if that's the case, it means Syke really didn't have that fuel right down to the limit. He's left a little bit in the tank, just in case.
Yeah, indeed. And, you know, if you're going to back out of a lap, best to do it as early as possible. Leaves the maximum level of juice still in the tyres for you to go again. Allows you to make sure your ERS is fully charged. You don't waste too much fuel. It's going to be okay for Syke right there. Only a corner and a half done before he decided that that was not going to be sufficient. Here's SHZ Chris, a fellow Shazoo member of yours there, as he's heading through turn 4. That looked all okay for the Alfa Romeo driver. Who, again, another driver who didn't necessarily have the race he would have liked. I seem to remember being involved in incidents and running around towards the back at the US Grand Prix short. So he'll be hoping for better this time around. Currently down in 16th in qualifying, though, so not promising too much better for the time being. That looked okay through there. Maybe a little bit late on the throttle on the exit. Probably could have picked that one up a little bit sooner, using just the tiniest bit of curve on the exit of the long left-hander there before heading down into the hard braking zone for the right-hander, not turning in quite early enough and not scrubbing off enough speed in the braking zone either. Meant that he lost another 10th of a second or so at least through there. Final corner looks okay though, and now we'll just keep his foot planted to the floor, and he'll hope against hope that this is going to be good enough as he comes up towards the line. And he does not improve, down by a 10th. So either he's got one last chance here or he is done.
Yeah, and, well, that is absolutely disastrous for Chris because he was over a 10th up and right at the end just couldn't quite hook things up. What about Joni Tormala? He's 2.5 tenths up right now. This could be enough for pole. Joni Tormala goes P1 with a 1:07.6. He smashes Alvaro Caraton's lap, who has just started a lap of his own, making his way through turns 2 and 3 down into 4. The carousel squeeze on the power, watch the back end, and it's all nice and tidy for the Williams driver, but is here fast because he needs to find a lot of time. Danny Haddad having put in a 7.26, he's jumped ahead of Caraton by a thousandth of a second.
Yeah, nice lap there from Daniel Haddad, but you'd expect Alvaro Caraton to be able to fight back with this one. Matthias Kologon's out there on another lap. Patrick Sipos, Sven Zerner, they've also all got one lap on their tyres, but they might still be able to improve. Danny Berezne's down in 9th at the moment, so he's going to need some major improvement if he wants to be in with a shout of making it 2 wins in a row. But here comes Alvaro Caraton, bit of a moment there into turn 11, but he looks like he's been able to hold on to the car nicely. Probably didn't lose too much time. Coming through the final corner now, running a little bit wide on the exit, but I think he just about kept that right rear still on the black stuff, which is all you need to do to avoid the invalidations as he comes up towards the line. And it's only good enough for second behind Alessio Di Capua, who snuck his way up into first. The Ferrari driver up there in first. Where is Danny Berezne? He's only good enough for 5th right now. And that's gutting news for him. Matthias Kologon might still be on a lap. Here comes Atta up towards the line, but he's just back into the pit. Kologon, is he still pushing there? No, he's backed out of it. So I think that's going to be it here in qualifying. Alessio Di Capua out of nowhere taking pole.
Yeah, great lap from Alessio, and it seems that in those final minutes, people kind of tripping over each other. I saw a lot of mayhem coming out of turn 13, and I think that was involving the likes of, I think it was Sven Zerner, maybe Matthias Kologon as well. So chaos at the end, but it's Alessio Di Capua who takes full advantage. A 107.593 to jump ahead of Alvaro Caraton on that front row of the grid.
Yeah, nice stuff. And that's especially a big turn up, considering I don't think he actually managed to set a lap in qualifying in round 1. I think he invalidated every single lap he went for, started from 17th on the grid as a result of it. Maybe he managed to get one banker lap in, I can't quite remember, but the qualifying did not go his way. As, you know, obviously it didn't if he started on 17th on the grid. He managed to get up to 7th, though, in the race, so he showed some really, really solid pace. He actually ran the contra strategy. I think maybe also tried to pull off a 2-stop like Sven Zerner, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, whatever he did worked out well for him, and he proved that he does have race pace. So now that he's managed to get this qualifying sorted out, he might be in with a good shot of winning here.
Yeah, he might very well be. Danny Berezne, Matthias Kologon down in P5-6. Patrick Sipos looking insanely quick, right up there with the big boys, the Challenger Series driver. P7, could he potentially be in for a big points haul as well?
It's a big opportunity for him, for sure, to really put his name on the map here. And another thing about Patrick Sipos, I think his main weakness is corner-cutting penalties. And at the track where that's a pretty difficult to get corner-cutting warnings, corner-cutting penalties, this might really suit him very, very well here in the race.
Yeah, Jacob, you and I, we've had the pleasure of commentating on Patrick from time to time. And as you mentioned, he has the pace, but sometimes he does rack up a few too many corner cut penalties. And here at Zandvoort, very difficult to cut the corners. And this could be, you know, his track. And we'll have to see whether that does pan out that way.
Yeah, I'm certainly hoping for big things from him. Of course, one of the F1 Esports Challenger Series drivers for this year. So, you know, definitely, he's already proved himself to an extent to be in that Challenger Series. That's not an easy thing to do. So anyone in that is a very, very good driver indeed. But, you know, you always want the chance to race with the really big names, particularly for someone like Patrick Sipos. I'm sure as a Hungarian, he'll be very, very happy to be racing against Danny Berezne as well, especially if he can take a battle to him.
I'm sure he'll be very happy if he can even get ahead of him. It almost reminds me a little bit of the old battle when Sainz came into Formula 1 and he was battling with Fernando Alonso. Maybe something to that kind of extent.
Yeah, you should get Netflix on this. I'm sure they'd love it. But yeah, I mean, I just want to go back as well to thinking about the front row. Alessio Di Capua being up there on the Ferrari with Alvaro Caraton alongside. Neither really got to strut their stuff quite as well as they would have liked in the race last time. I think Alvaro Caraton managed to get onto the podium as a result of penalties to Sven Zerner after the race. So, you know, but I think he had a chance to chase Danny and couldn't do it at one point in that race. I think he was second for a while and just did not have the ability to get up to Danny's level. So here, I'm sure he would like to prove that he's not going to be playing second fiddle once again. They'll be very keen to get Alessio Di Capua off the line.
Yep. So your grid order for round 2 of ORL Season 14 is as follows. Alessio Di Capua takes pole position ahead of Alvaro Caraton. Yoni Tormala in P3 with Danny Haddad completing the second row of the grid. Your round 1 race winner, Danny Berejne, is in P5 ahead of Matthias Kologon, with the second Hungarian of Patrick Sipos lining up in 7th ahead of Sven Zerner. Falconardi is in P9 with your ORL Season 11 champion Benza Sabo Konyi completing the top 10. And Anita is in P11 ahead of Ate Kaupinen. And it is Lucas UK in P13 ahead of Patrick Krutage, who finished the opening race all the way up in P5. Get Owned lines up in 15th alongside his Shazoo teammate Chris, with VSR Syke in 17th ahead of Matthias Wipic in P18 as Pablo Joglar and Arsen Kardanov complete the grid.
Interesting to look at a very different set of choices for tyres for those who had the free choice outside the top 10. Hard tyres for Andy and Ate, then mediums for Lucas and Krutic. And then Getone back on hards, Chris on mediums, Syke actually going for soft tyres. We got Matthias Vipic on the mediums, Pablo Hoglar on the hards alongside Arsen Kardanov on that very same set of tyres at the very back of the grid.
Yep. And the drivers start to line up on the grid. We'll see whether Syke's soft tyres really pay dividends for him. He'll be hoping to climb up the order as quickly as possible. But we already talked about how here at Zandvoort it is difficult to overtake. And it being difficult to overtake will definitely be helping Alessio Di Capua. He'll be looking to take home his first win of the season. 5 red lights here in the Netherlands. And the lights will go out, and we are racing for the second time this season. It's a good start for Alessio Di Capua, who will be leading the way through turn 1 from Alvaro Caraton and Yoni Tormala. And it is side by side between Danny Berejne and Daniela Haddad. Berejne down the inside, and Berejne might have the job done, but they're side by side now through the S's here in the Netherlands, and inside for turn 8 is Danny Haddad, and he holds on to P4.
Danny Berejne kicking up some dirt there in that battle. He did not want to let that one go easily, but Daniel Haddad shutting the door on him. Danny Berejne definitely got one over on Haddad last time out when he just absolutely gunned it from lap 6 and dropped the racing point like it was no problem. So I think Daniel Haddad will be very keen to keep Danny Berejne behind. Danny's off, and what is happening here? He's staying off. What on earth is going on there? Has he had some hardware issues or something with the wheel? Some problems here for Danny Berejne, and that is not what we want to see.
Well, either way, he's had to pull off so rare to see a driver pulling off in that fashion in esports, but we've seen it, and Danny Berejne, well, he's got to pull off a bit of a lasting first challenge now. We'll see if he can do it. Matthias Kologon dropping down the order as well. He's all the way down to P7, so I'm not quite sure what has occurred there, as Andinator and Krutic side by side, and Krutic gets the job done on a charge, and Syke will try to follow through on those red wall soft tyres. He takes full advantage of the harder compound tyres that Andinator is currently on.
Yeah, Syke's made some progress off the start with those soft tyres. He'd have been expecting to do so, and he needed to do so as well. I'm wondering if we're having some desynchronization issues with Danny Berejne, because he's just popped up into first. So his car is probably not where we saw it. I think that was probably false, seeing him diving off the road there. And I think we're probably just desynchronized from him. So unfortunately, I don't think we're actually going to be able to see the true position of Danny Berejne throughout this race. So this is going to be a little bit difficult. Maybe you guys in chat can maybe keep us updated on where he is. If you can pop over his stream and check. Apparently he's in 7th. At the moment, but yeah, that's a bit of a spanner in the works for us here in the commentary box. But nevertheless, out at the very front, it is still Alessio Di Capua from Alvaro Caraton. That much we are sure of.
Yeah, and something else that we should probably bring up as well is we've seen this happen to other drivers. I remember we were commentating the other day, and I think it was Valu who was having desynchronization issues, but it can cause issues for the drivers out on circuit. The cars can be lagging backwards and forwards, so if you do see the drivers having to, kind of jerk out of the way for nothing, it could potentially be Danny Berejne's car on their screen kind of popping up and then disappearing.
Indeed, yeah, and yet to see just how many of them he'll be desynchronized for as well. So it's going to be a bit strange here, but we'll have to work it out. Danny Berezhny just retires from the session. So I think that we can take to mean that's actually real. I think probably just decided his car was going to be too much of a menace for the rest of the drivers and just retires. That is the noble thing to do in this scenario when your car is causing issues. It's no fault of his own, but that is just gutting for him if that's real, and not the way he wanted to defend his current championship lead.
Yeah, smart from Danny Berezhny, and these drivers have a lot of respect for one another, and they all know how it feels when there is a desynced car that kind of pops up and it disappears. I mean, we saw it in F1 esports not too long ago with Jarno Opmeer and the ex-esports champion. His name slips my mind right now, but it happened in Canada and it could happen here as well. So Danny Berezhny pulls the plug and he is out, which means his championship defense will be, well, his championship lead will almost certainly be gone after this race. I'm taking a look, riding on board with Ben Sabaconi, who's on the back of Falconardi and Sipos Patrick, and they're all kind of being held up right now behind the Frenchman of Matthias Collegon.
Indeed, yeah, Matthias Collegon, I think, got a bit of a tip from the front end of Patrick Sipos into turn one, unless I'm very, very much mistaken. I think that is what I saw there. They only caught it out the corner of my eye. Out at the front, still Alessio Di Caprio, Alvaro Caraton, Yoni Tormala, Daniele Haddad. They're all remaining in sync at the moment. Matthias Collegon falling just out of DRS range of Sven Zern, not where he needs to be. He'd love to get back under that 1 second mark. He's tantalizingly close to it right now. But I don't think he's going to make it before this DRS detection zone, and he's going to find himself in a bit of a vulnerability. Careful, and speaking of vulnerability, Nardi sideways on the road. Thankfully, no one hit him. But into the wall he goes, and the Spaniard falls down to the bottom of the order.
Yeah, all the way down to P19. And, well, it is lost because Danny Berezhny is not racing, and it's so easy to happen, and it just shows how on the limit everyone is. You're just pushing that much. You get on the curb, bit too much power on the exit of 14, and snap, the back end is gone just like that.
Indeed, and yeah, it's usually just easy flat through there, but occasionally it can just really catch you out, and that is exactly what happened to Falconardi. Thankfully, not having to retire, so he can still go for it, but he is on soft tires, so he can't really run any sort of contra strategy from this point. It's going to be tough for him to get back into the points from here, especially when overtaking is as difficult as it is here in Zandvoort.
Yeah, after a top 10 start for the Williams driver all the way at the back end of the field, and with safety cars so uncommon in the online racing league, or have I just jinxed it right now, Jacob? Falconardi's hopes will be looking bleak. Syke, who started on those soft tires all the way down, I think it was in P17, he's up to now P11, so he's had a great start.
Yeah, good progress, helped by the demise of Danny Berezhny and Falconardi, of course, as well, but has gained a fair few positions. Daniele Haddad with the fastest lap coming through, and there, once again, that's Patrick Sipos into Matthias Collegon. I thought I saw that a few laps ago. I think it's happened again, and this time Matthias Collegon is completely off circuit. He's got front wing damage. He's retired from the race, and that is frustrating to the maximum from the Frenchman, Patrick Sipos. Not a good look for him as he sends the Frenchman into retirement.
And we just caught the end of that incident. Patrick Sipos just tapping, and it looked like the lightest of taps on the Frenchman's rear, but it was enough to send him careering into the gravel and out of the race. And we talked about Patrick Sipos picking up time penalties, and he's just landed himself a 3-second penalty as well.
Indeed, yeah, first driver to do so, and I can't say I'm all too surprised by that one. It is definitely the part of the aspect of his racing he needs to clean up the most. Still has the raw pace, though. He's a very, very impressive young talent, and he's pretty new to the games as well, so I'd expect him to go some major places. He's got some big potential, but that was an unfortunate moment for sure for the Haas driver there. But meanwhile, for the race lead, here comes Alvaro Caraton up the inside of Alessio Di Caprio, and there isn't even a battle to be had into turn one. The Ferrari driver gets very, very close to the Sofina on the rear wing of that Williams there, but not close enough, and Alvaro Caraton moves up into first.
Yeah, I think it was smart probably there by Alessio Di Capua to not attempt to defend the move. He just let Alvaro sweep past, and he can have a go at Alvaro on the next lap. What they need to do is make sure they don't battle, make sure that they have the opportunity so that they can pull that 1 second gap to Yoni Tormala if the opportunity presents itself.
Indeed, yeah, and that is sort of where the gap is remaining the largest out of those top 5 at the moment. Yoni Tormala is the one that's threatening to fall just outside of DRS range of Alessio Di Capua, rather than any of the others falling away. Patrick Sipos, 2.2 seconds behind, but he's been 2.2 seconds behind for a while now. So he's not falling that much further away from them, but he's also not catching back up to the DRS range, which he sorely needs to be in. Benzabo Konyi just about hanging on his coattails with Lucas UK and Krutic, who are going to be pretty happy with how this is going for them, both on the medium tyres, but well within the DRS range of the guys in 6th and 7th. So on that contra strategy, they should be sitting pretty well right now.
Yeah, Ben Sabakonyi is within a second of Patrick Sipos. For a moment, he was over a second behind, but he's managed to crawl back in. And now he can try to find a way through as well. Ben Sabakonyi, really the last of those initial top 10 who started on the soft tyres. Of course, Falconardi, also one of those top 10 who started on the soft tyres, but he's currently down in P18 after that spin earlier on.
Yeah, so a bit of a statistical outlier there for sure. But yeah, Syke, it's not too great now that he's falling away, building up a bit of a gap in the middle of the midfield there. Andy Ghetto and Mateus Vipic, they all will be pretty frustrated as well, because every half a second that Syke starts losing to the cars up ahead, it's allowing Lucas UK and Krutic to get further away. And that's really the battle right now for the likes of Syke, Andy Ghetto and Vipic, etc. They really want to be in there with Lucas UK and Kruc because they are on those medium tyres. And the fact that they are falling away through no fault of their own right now just because of the traffic is going to be frustrating, to say the least. Andy is the one who needs to make the move to start getting the ball rolling for the rest of the contra-strategists right now, but Syke is holding the door for the time being.
Yeah, we're riding on board with the Ferrari driver now, and he's within 3/10. And is this the moment where he thinks those hards are faster than the soft? Lets her pull off the move. He goes down the inside, and surely he will sweep up past the Racing Point. Syke tries to hold it around the outside, but he's not going to be able to find the grip, and he will lose the position. Andinator up to P10 into the points, and the first of all of the drivers on that hard compound of tyres.
Yeah, very, very important for Andy to make that move. Ghetto will be desperate to do the exact same. And he'll be hoping, actually, I think, probably hoping that Andy gets out of DRS range of Syke so that Syke will be an easier target for Ghetto. But it's kind of tough because Ghetto won't want to see Andy getting too far away from himself either. Those two know each other well from Split B last season, of course, and both being members of the Shazoo outfit. So they'll surely know how each other race and maybe looking to help each other out just a little bit here as well. But right now, Syke is the meat in the Shazoo sandwich.
Yep. And Syke, well, let's see, because, you know, we probably assume that Andinator and Ghetto, they're probably both in a voice call together, discussing strategy, working together as much as they can, because it does help you in these races. And Ghetto will be saying, come on, Andy, you need to push, I need to be able to get past, you can't give Syke a DRS, but Andinator not able to pull that 1 second this time around. He's been able to pull to 0.5 of a second. It's now 0.6. He needs to really, really hammer it down in the rest of Sector 1 so that Syke will not have DRS on that run down into turn 12 and 13.
Indeed, yeah. But Andy actually not really getting any closer to Lucas UK and Krutic at this stage either. Despite having got past Syke, he's not actually looking that much faster than the just raw pace of the Racing Point right now. So Andy will probably be a little bit disappointed with that one. He'd have been hoping that he could get past and start to drive away, but that's not been the case thus far. Ghetto and Vipic, Atza, Chris, Pablo Hoglar and Arsen, all part of that train, and they are all driving to the pace of Syke right now. He is the man beating the drum, and they are but the followers, and they do not want to be the followers. They would love to be able to set their own pace and set their own rhythm out here, but they're just unable to do so for now.
Yeah, and you can see in the tight and twisty sections as well, the fact that Ghetto is so much quicker than Syke, but, you know, once you really get into the middle of the corner, you then start to lose a bit of that gap. Back onto the DRS straight again, the start-finish straight, and Syke will just close back up to Andy, as Patrick Sepos is the first of the soft tyre runners to dive on into the pits at the end of lap 10.
Yes, we'll keep an eye on him, see what his progress is like on those hard tyres. He might well trigger a bit of a chain reaction. Sven Zerner was the car ahead of him on the road. But Patrick Sipos coming into this pits early as well. He has protected himself from a potential undercut from Bensabo Konyi, who was just behind him before Patrick came into the pits there. So that might have been an astute move from the Hungarian in the Haas. We'll have to wait and see about that one once we get to the end of the race. Of course, he has a long way to go on these hard tyres to the very end, but he should be able to make it work.
Yeah, this will also impact Ben Sabakoni if he doesn't pit this lap, because now the Hungarian won't have a DRS from his Hungarian compatriot. So he's going to be a sitting duck to Lucas UK on the start-finish straight. And we are, well, I mean, if Patrick Sipos are pitted on that lap, we'll have to see whether the rest of the soft tyre runners want to do a soft to hard strategy, or if they're going to be trying the soft mediums and back to softs. We saw, some drivers going for the two-stop strategy, some going for the one-stop strategy back in USA for the opening round of the season. And it seems that nobody else of those top 6 drivers will be pitting this time round. As Syke actually does a pit, and he will drop down the order.
Yeah, but Matthias Vipic seemed like they're battling as well over 11th and 12th right now. Matthias Vipic, I think, holding station there ahead of Atta for the time being. The Renault harassing him, though, through turn 4, but getting a bit of a wiggle on the exit there, and as a result, Vipic will be safe in 11th for now. Out towards the front. Joni Tormala has proved me wrong in suggesting that he was the most likely one to break the chain out there at the front, because he is now the closest of anyone to the car ahead, only 4.5 tenths of a second behind Alessio Di Capua, who has held pace with Alvaro Carreton well ever since the Spaniard got past. He hasn't been necessarily looking like giving him any trouble at the very front.
No, he hasn't been troubling Alvaro either. So Alvaro, we saw him getting past Alessio Di Capua not that long ago. I think it was back on lap 5. And Alessio's just sat behind it. It might not be a case of Alessio not being able to overtake, but just knowing, right, I'm just going to sit behind you for now. Maybe you look for that undercut, maybe go for the overcut, and then on the last couple of laps, then look for a move. And again, none of the soft tyre runners coming into the pits this time round, and it does look like the top 6 drivers are looking to stretch those soft tyres and maybe pull off the soft to medium strategy.
Yeah, Ben Sabakoni still falling away as well from the front 5 right now. 4.2 seconds is now the gap. When he got past, or rather when Patrick Stipos came into the pits, the gap was about 3.5 seconds or thereabouts. So Bentz, despite now being in clean air, cannot catch up with the very front runners, which is, of course, always more difficult to do when you're not a member of that DRS train. It's that much harder to catch up to it, especially if you're on the same tyres as everyone else. And now he's actually got to worry about Lucas UK in his rear mirrors. Patrick Krutic as well has come up with his fellow medium tyre runner up to the rear end of the Renault. So Ben Sabakoni is going to be under pressure from these, increasingly so, as those soft tyres are going to be starting to really fall away now.
Yeah, I think Ben Sabakoni has actually done a good job so far to keep Lucas and Krucic behind. In lap 12, we are well and truly into the crossover point as now Alessio Di Capua and Joni Tormala dive on into the pits. Let's see where they come out. Ben Sabakoni into the pits as well. Let's see where they come out relative to the likes of Falconardi and Patrick Sipos.
It's hard for Alessio Di Capua, but it's mediums for both Joni Tormala and Ben Sabakoni. So difference in strategy there from these guys. Do Ben Sabakoni and Joni Tormala reckon those mediums can go to the end, or are they planning to maybe pull off a two-stop strategy? I think maybe the mediums might be able to last from this point to the very end of the race. So interesting that is a disagreement there from Alessio Di Capua, who feels that he had to go onto those hard tyres as he dispatches Pablo Joglar after coming out of the pits there, making sure that he's not going to be given too much trouble by the McLaren driver. Critically, he has that car in between himself and Joni Tormala, who will want to use those medium tyres to their fullest effect right now and try and get past Alessio Di Capua, but he has to get rid of the McLaren up ahead before he can do that.
Yep, and Joni Tormala going to try to find a way past Pablo Joglar as well down the inside. Late move, but he's going to pull it off as Skittles over the curb. But that's job done for Joni Tormala, and that's exactly what he needs to do, because he needs to stay on the back of Alessio Di Capua, who is now on the back of Chris as they look to start lap 15. Alvaro Carreton, Daniela Haddad are into the pits. Chris dives on into the pits, which is good news for Joni Tormala, because that's going to be one less car in between himself and Alessio. As out of the pits comes Alvaro Carreton. You can see him just up ahead. And Alvaro Carreton, well, he's made the overcut work fantastically. And he will come out as well ahead of Ate Kaupinen.
Yeah, this traffic has actually been a bit of a disaster for Alessio Di Capua. Would definitely have been hoping for a significant undercut and maybe an attempt to pass Alvaro Carreton for the race lead once again, or what would eventually become the race lead. But because he's been stuck here behind Atta, he had to battle with Pablo Joglar as well. And he's just not been able to put in the lap time he would have liked. Same story for Tormala and Daniele Haddad, who are still just stuck behind him right here. And they need to get past Ate pretty quickly right now. The Renault driver holding station okay for the time being. Good news is that Alvaro Carreton is not out of traffic yet, although he might just about to be here, as he makes the move into turn 12 on Matthias Vipic. Nicely done from the Spaniard, who now has 2.7 seconds of clean air to sprint away from the rest of the drivers who are still stuck behind Ate Kalpanen, and they still have Matthias Vipic to go up ahead as well. Sven Zerner, the final driver on the soft tyres, coming to the pits here. He'll fall down probably to the back of this train. Here comes Joni Tormala thinking about a move on Alessio Di Capua. Ate is actually having a go at Matthias Vipic, of all people, right there. Those two yet to pit, but they're both battling. But Ate has to stick in behind for now.
Oh, they're getting so close and round the outside. Joni Tormala looking for a crazy move round the outside of the carousel, and he's pulled it off as well. He's got track position. What a move from Joni Tormala.
Have some of that, son. That is incredible stuff from Joni Tormala. Lovely move. He noticed that Alessio Di Capua was compromised just a little bit by Ate being slow on the inside of turn 4. And now here comes Joni Tormala with another opportunistic dive up the inside of the Renault. Alessio Di Capua was thinking about the move behind. It's mayhem back there. Daniele Haddad might be on his outside. No, he's forced off track instead and has to stick behind his compatriot. Here comes Sven Zerner on those fresh medium tyres. There's contact. Daniele Haddad turns in on him there. Didn't realize Sven was alongside, but it all ends up okay. Sven having a dive on the brakes there to avoid two major contact. Now that is hectic stuff in what is now the midfield.
I do not know how those two made contact and did not end up spinning Alessio Di Capua. Under pressure from Danny Haddad. Haddad looking for the outside. Di Capua moves across, makes a contact with a racing point, but Danny Haddad's having none of it. He finds the traction on exit, now side by side into 2 and 3. He's got the job done. He squeezes Di Capua out, and he has some of that, son. Revenge is best served cold, and Danny Haddad takes P9.
Yeah, Haddad will not have been happy about his treatment at the hands of Alessio Di Capua in turn 11 on the previous lap, so he'll be very glad to be rid of the Ferrari driver. And this decision to go onto the hard tyres is not looking all that good for Alessio Di Capua right now. He's been passed rather easily in the end by Daniele Haddad there, and Joni Tormala also really kind of embarrassing him around the outside of turn 4 last lap. So, yeah, those hard tyres really not suiting the Ferrari for the time being. Ate Kalpanen is just absolutely... just doesn't know what's happening all around him right now. He needs to be very, very careful not to get in anyone's way. And he lets Daniele Haddad through. There's Alessio Di Capua. Sven Zerner into the rear of him, but doesn't pick up front wing damage. So that's good news there. As Alessio Di Capua with an aggressive chop across the road to take the racing line for the final corner there. But Ate Kalpanen thankfully was not anymore alongside him. Here comes Sven Zerner, also getting past the Renault driver, who gets comfortably out of the way. Joni Tormala setting the fastest lap of the race in the other of the Alpha Tauris. And that's a from Sven Zerner, it's into the side, and he spun round. And honestly, I do not know what else he was expecting from that one. The German is going to have to think about that one long and hard, as he's now down into 14th.
I don't even think we need to think about who was at blame for that incident, but we do need to think about this battle, because Danny Haddad is on a fire as he passes Matthias Vipic for P7. He's got Joni Tormala 2 seconds up the road. That's how much time Danny Haddad has lost. 2 seconds to the Alpha Tauri of Joni Tormala, and now he's got to get his head down. He has to try to close in that gap. Joni Tormala within a second of Alvaro Carreton, and don't forget, Tormala on those mediums, Carreton on the hards.
Yeah, Carreton also letting go for the hards. In the chaos of it all, I hardly even noticed that, so he might struggle. Honestly, on those tyres, let's see what the guys on the mediums can do. They could really pose a threat to the likes of Carreton come the end of this race, and it really should have been his race to lose. I mean, he'll get the benefit of those hard tyres towards the end of the race for sure. The mediums will fall away quicker, but it's going to be a while before that happens. Here comes Alessio Di Capua getting past the Mercedes, and Matthias Vipic there, who's still out there on medium tyres. He's going to be the last driver almost, apart from Krutic and Lucas UK at the front, to still be out there on medium tyres that they started the race on. Pablo Hoglar is just coming out of the pits onto a fresh set of mediums. And there is Ben Saboconi as well, who's once again stuck behind Patrick Sepos. He's been looking at the rear end of that Haas all race thus far.
Yep, and he's on the medium tyres. Patrick Sepos on the hard, so Ben Saboconi will be very happy with the situation he finds himself in. And unlike before, it's going to be much easier for Saboconi to find a way past his Hungarian compatriot. But Jacob, do you remember at the start of the show where we were talking about how difficult it is to overtake here at Zandvoort?
Yeah, well, they've certainly found some creative ways to do it. Around the outside of turn 4 isn't the most common one, but it's lovely when you get to see it happen, and that's definitely the move of the day thus far for me. But yeah, there's been a whole lot of stuff going on. It's been helped by just these roadblocks, these moving chicanes in the forms of drivers on older tires who don't have the pace of the guys who've just come in for the fresh tires. So they've definitely thrown the cat amongst the pigeons in the battling here. Ben Sabaconi actually has a really good run on Patrick Sipos right now. This is a big opportunity. He's been stuck behind his compatriot for the whole race thus far, and now at the inside of turn 1 he goes. He'll be desperate to get past the Haas. Mediums against hards as well. And I think this should be the move done and dusted for Ben Sabaconi, but no, Patrick Sipos keeping his nose in. Brave stuff there from the Haas driver. And he's still alongside as they head now up the hill before going back down the hill at the back end of the circuit. Through the dunes we go. Ben Sabaconi has finally managed to make the move.
Yeah, it's really brave stuff from Patrick Sipos to keep his nose in through turn 3 on the outside. And Ben Sabaconi, he thought he had the move done. He turned in for the carousel, and Patrick Sipos said, "Hey, my nose is still here. I'm not giving up this position just yet." And Ben Sabaconi said, "All right, fine. Let's play around for another couple of corners before he got the move done up into P11 now." And it's Arsene Kardinov and Matthias Whippage up ahead. They're still on the tyres that they started the race on.
Indeed, yeah, and they are, again, just holding up some of these drivers right now. Patrick Sipos was behind Arsene Kardinov, but didn't seem like getting past. He's on 8-lap-old hards now as well, so he's not got a whole lot of pace in his current situation. He went for a very early pit stop onto those hard tires, and I don't think it's worked out for him really at all. He was looking to try and get the undercut on the likes of Sven Zerner. He is now ahead of Sven Zerner, but only because Zerner ended up facing backwards through turn 1 after a very over-optimistic lunge on Alessio Di Capua. But let's just take stock of the race order for now. It is Alvaro Carreton who is de facto leading this race, with Joni Tormala in second, Daniel Haddad third, Alessio Di Capua fourth, then Ben Sabaconi, Patrick Sipos, and Sven Zerner. VSR Psych is doing a good job there, actually. He's gained a couple of positions in these pit stops, I believe. Yeah,
VSR Psych, again, I was quite surprised by how early he pitted from the soft tyres. Remember, you know, he didn't have to start on the soft tyres he qualified on, so we would have expected him to be able to do maybe a lap more than the guys who started on the soft tyres. But as the case was, he was one of the earliest drivers to pit. He's put on the harder tyres, and let's see how it pans out, because he's only about 6-7 seconds behind Patrick Sipos. Lucas UK picks up a time penalty, but I want to keep an eye on Ben Sabaconi, who is on the back of Arsene Kardinov, and surely this time round he'll look to find a move on the Russian driver.
He'll certainly hope to do so, and it looks like from this camera shot here that he's easily going to be able to reel in the Red Bull into turn 1 on the inside. There's no grip with which Arsene Kardinov can battle with, and as a result, that's Ben Sabaconi up into 8th, and even better for the Renault driver, the fact that Patrick Sipos wasn't able to follow him through there. So now he's got an opportunity to bolt away from the Haas driver and hopefully try and catch up to the likes of Alessio Di Capua ahead as well. Alessio, of course, on those hard tyres won't quite have the pace of the medium tyre runners, so it's a bit of an opportunity here for Bence to try and get back in the conversation for the higher point scoring positions.
Yeah, and we're at the point in the race now where the likes of Krutic, Andy and Get-On, they can pit from their mediums and hard tyres onto softs and go to the end. For Alvaro Carreton, he's right on the back of Get-On. So Krutic, I'm really interested to see what he's going to be able to do. When he puts on those fresh soft tyres, he'll probably come out maybe a second behind Lucas UK, who has already pitted. But come the end of the race, Lucas UK soft tyres will be that little bit more worn. Krutic into the pits this time round, as Alvaro Carreton will have a little look at Get-On. No, he won't, just a bit too far back. Get-On outbrakes himself, and he might just get owned right now from Alvaro Carreton, who tucks right behind the Haas. Can he have a look down the inside into the carousel? The answer is no. Alvaro Carreton has to hold on to P3 for now.
Yeah, Kruch just came out of the pits almost alongside Lucas UK and had to cede to the Red Bull driver back there. But out here at the front, Alvaro Carreton, Joni Tormala all over his rear wing. He wants to be able to get past Get-On, and critically, he wants to not allow Joni Tormala through while he does so. That's going to give him a little bit of breathing space at this critical part of the race, where the mediums are still better than the hards. but the switchover point between those tires is almost within touching distance. It's a few laps away still, but it's getting closer and it's getting closer. The difference between the tires will be getting less and less as the laps go on. So the longer that Alvaro Carreton can keep Yoni Tormala behind, the easier it will become to keep him behind even longer. So if he can build up that little buffer zone in the form of Getone between himself and the Finnish driver behind, that would be big for Alvaro Carreton's chances of winning this race.
Yeah, and into the pits comes Andinator and Getone, which will relinquish Alvaro Carreton, and crucially, it means that Carreton will not have DRS from anyone ahead. Tormala on those medium tyres, he still has a few laps between that crossover point when the hards will become slightly quicker than the mediums. He needs to get a move done, and he needs to get it done fast.
Indeed, yeah. Krutic and Getone all in a row there on the soft tyres. Getone actually might come out of the pits ahead of the SR Psych and does so. So that's pretty big for Getone. He's in a decent spot, maybe try and nab some points towards the end of this race, depending on the penalties of others as well, of course. But right now, Krutic still very, very close behind Sven Zerner, who has fallen prey to Lucas UK. And we'd expect to see the Polish driver in the Mercedes being able to get past Sven in the next lap or so as well. You can see the difference in grip between those Redwall soft tyres that are 1 lap old compared to the 7 lap old medium tyres on Sven Zerner's AlphaTauri there. So it should be a bit of a formality when Kruc does get past.
Yeah, and Sven Zerner just tapping the grass a little bit on the entry into turn 11, and that's just going to be helping Krutic out, giving him a little bit more confidence. And into turns 14 and 15 we go. Sven Zerner 6-7 tenths behind Lucas UK. He'll have a DRS, but Krutic has the fresher tyres. He has the overspeed. Sven Zerner will go defensive. Round the outside goes Krutic. Turn 1, not a place where you usually overtake, especially round the outside. You do overtake down the inside, that's for sure. Into 3, Krutic has a look but cannot find the move round the outside now. And Krutic has to hold on to P9.
Yeah, went for the Yoni Tormala, but couldn't quite pull it off. Meanwhile, Atta has retired from this race. Not sure what happened to the Renault driver, but he will not be making the checkered flag here in this one. Patrick Krutic is not going to be very happy right now. Stuck behind Sven Zerner for probably another lap. And that is an extra lap that Lucas UK can drive away. It's an extra lap that Krutic doesn't have the luxury of chasing down the likes of Ben Sabaconi, Patrick Sipos up ahead. But speaking of those drivers, they're going quite slowly out there on the circuit right now. Ben Sabaconi holding up Patrick Sipos. That's allowed Lucas UK to quickly drop to the back of them. Even Sven Zerner is getting closer to the rear end of those tires as well, with Krutic just behind. So it's all concertinaing up there in the sort of lower end of the points. And that's great news for the likes of Lucas UK, Krutic, and Biangetto.
Yeah, and, you know, we can talk about it time after time. The difference between calculating a race strategy, working out what is quicker on paper, and then actually executing it. Because it's one thing to be able to, you know what's quicker. It's another thing to be able to pull it off. Ooh. It's another thing as, oh, that's Andy dropping down the order. What has happened to Andy? He's out of the race. Let's see if we can... I'm not quite sure where that's happened. Arsene Kardanov has already got past him. So that is big news. One of the Shizou drivers dropping well down the order. Chris down to P14. Getone's having a decent time, though. Patrick Sipos picks up another penalty. But going back to what I was saying, Jacob, is one thing being able to, even pull off the strategy. But then it's another thing to be able to overtake people when you're on those fresher tires. And another thing entirely when you have to overtake people who are in the middle of a DRS train.
Indeed. And that's actually what Sven Zerner did so well last time out in the opening race of the season. When he was on those fresh soft tyres and he had to get through the cars that were on reasonably fresh tyres, not bad tyres, but not quite as soft as his, he really made it work. And, even if you save a second getting through the traffic, that can make all the difference once you get to the end of the race. So Lucas UK will not want to tarry at all. And he's not doing so as he sends it up the inside of one Hungarian and almost drives into the back of the other. He manages to get past Patrick Sipos, who picked himself up another time penalty last lap round. Lucas UK also one of the drivers in this race with a time penalty. So he needs to watch out for that one as well. It's all the more important that he gets past quickly so that he can start to build the gap to the cars behind. And he'll want to dispatch Ben Sabaconi as easily as he did Patrick Sipos next time he gets around to turn 1.
Yep, and I fear that the difficult part will not be overtaking Ben Sabaconi. I feel that he'll be able to do that one fairly straightforwardly, but then pulling 3 seconds in the remaining 9 or so laps might be tricky. As in the background, we see Krutic throwing his nose down the inside of Get Owned, and he might have just compromised Get Owned's exit just enough to have a look down into the chicane. No, too far behind, but Krutic is searching for any way past Sven Zerner right now.
Yeah, Sven is actually holding Krutic behind well. Of course, the fact that he's got in DRS range once again of Patrick Sipos, Lucas UK, that lot, that's really helped Sven Zerner and really hindered Krutic, who is a lot faster in terms of grip right now, but just cannot get past me more further up. That's Lucas UK going for the move around the outside this time of Ben Sabokoni, and he gets it done with excellent drive on the exit of turn 1 there. Nice move from Lucas UK, dispatching him calmly and cleanly above all else. And now up in a 5th, clean air, 6 seconds worth of it. He can look to push.
6 seconds worth of clean air and 6.5 laps remaining, or pardon me, 8.5 laps remaining, Jacob. What can Lucas UK pull out? Can he close that gap to Alessio Di Capua? Can he maybe even throw a spanner in the works for those top 4 drivers? And the top 4 starting to get that little bit close to the gaps between Yoni Tormala, Daniela Haddad, and Alessio Di Capua were much greater before, but now less than 2 seconds separating any 2 given drivers.
Yeah, and out there at the very front, Alvaro Caraton, Yoni Tormala. The gap is starting maybe to get a little bit bigger between the two of them. They're still within DRS range, of course. Yoni Tormala still only half a second behind Alvaro Caraton. He hasn't really been troubling the rear end of that Williams, but speaking of troubled rear end, Sven Zerner might be in trouble into turn 1, but no, actually gets a really nice drive along the whole straight and comfortably ahead of Krutic once again, who just cannot make this work on these soft tires. He's seen Lucas UK absolutely check out up ahead. Krutic, I think, was ahead of Lucas UK before they both came into the pits, unless I'm very much mistaken. So to see Lucas UK now 4 places ahead of him up the road there with all this traffic in between the two of them is going to be gutting for the Polish driver in the Mercedes. He'll be wishing he pitted 1 lap earlier, that's for sure.
Yeah, the issue for Krutic right now, you can see, is look at his ERS bar on the steering wheel. He's got practically nothing left. That's about 10% ERS, maybe 15% ERS. He needs to charge up before looking for a move in. You can see Ben Sabokoni, I think, starting to struggle on those medium tires. And now Patrick Sepos really starting to apply the pressure onto his Hungarian compatriot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I expected Benz to be able to drop Patrick Sipos once he got past, but nothing of the sort. And now those medium tires are starting to fall away in terms of pace relative to the hards just a little bit. And Patrick has done a really good job of keeping Benz honest throughout the continuation of this race. Since he was passed, it's easy to let your head get down when a driver gets past you like that, but Patrick did nothing of the sort.
Dive.
However, now late dive up the inside from Sven Zerner. He's done that once with the resulting tears earlier on in the race. This time around, Patrick Sipos gives him the space very generously indeed, but there's Patrick up the inside of turn 4. We've seen him do that before this race as well. Almost losing the car on the exit. Lovely evasive maneuver from Krutic in the background, who could have absolutely been wiped out there in the Mercedes, but actually manages to take advantage of the situation and get past Patrick Sipos, who loses 2 places in the opening sector of this lap.
Patrick Sipos will be having some very choice words for Sven Zerner. Sven going for that same dive bomb that ended in tears, but Patrick very aware of the situation and left a room for that dive for Sven. He could have very easily turned across Sven, and to be honest, I don't think anyone would have put blame on him for doing so, but he didn't, and he drops down 2 positions, and that's one that he's going to be thinking about for the rest of the night.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's got quite a lot to think about, to be honest. It's been a pretty eventful race there. Canardi picking up a 3-second time penalty down in 11th, and with a faster car on soft tyres ahead of him, not much chance of securing any points unless some other people run into trouble in this race. As Patrick Sipos actually going into the pits to scratch that, Falconardi has a pretty excellent chance. With Patrick Sipos' 19-lap-old hards, he's deciding to get rid of them. Evidently didn't think he could get them to the end. He's going to strap on a set of softs, but no chance of points now for Patrick Sipos, who's going to fall right to the very back of the order.
Yeah, Patrick Sipos, I think, just wants to be stealing some fastest lap points, get some glory of his own after being probably a racer to forget for him. It hasn't been, completely disastrous, but it's just been that one little mistake after another little mistakes, and they have all added up for the Hungarian get-owned. Picks up a 3-second time penalty. That might actually influence a battle between himself and Falconardi in P10.
Yeah, Nardi will be wishing he didn't just pick up a 3-second time penalty of his own last lap. So, yeah, that's going to be a bit annoying there for the Spaniard in 10th. Syke pretty close behind in 11th as well in the Racing Point. Looked pretty good in the opening stages of the race with the Racing Point driver, but he's not really been able to make true on that promise thereafter. Out at the very front, the gap between Joni Tormela and Alvaro Carreton is remaining slow and steady as it has been. Here comes Patrick Crouch, is going anything but slow at the moment, but still just cannot make a move, cannot make a real indent at all on the straight into the back of Sven Zerner, into the gap that Sven Zerner has built to him there. And it's just going to be so annoying for the Mercedes driver. There's nothing he can do at this stage. He needs to really sit back, charge up the ERS, and then have one real push lap. But he's running out of time even to do that with 32 laps gone of this 36-lap race. He might really have lost all his chances now.
Yeah, and we're at that point where those soft tires are now 8 laps old and they won't be doing it too well. And, you know, it's not just that Sven Zerner is on those mediums and is able to defend against the soft tires, but he's got DRS from Ben Saboconi and Lucas UK, you know, on those soft tires. You got past Ben Saboconi fairly easily when the Renault driver didn't have any DRS. He hasn't been able to pull away, and it's what we talked about. It's difficult to overtake here at Zandvoort, even if you are on those fresher tires. If the driver ahead has DRS, it becomes nigh on impossible.
Indeed, and Daniel Haddad in third at the moment, still 1.5 seconds behind Joni Tormela. That gap has remained shockingly consistent ever since they got clear of the traffic. Those guys really are just on another level to have the consistency of pace they have right now.
Made a mistake. And Ben Saboconi just had a little look. Lucas UK running wide through turn 1. Sorry to cut across you, but Ben Saboconi can't quite find the way through just yet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Feel free to cut across me. Big action going on there for P5. Of course, Lucas UK does have that 3-second time penalty, so Ben Saboconi doesn't really need to risk getting past him right now. There is absolutely zero chance of them catching the front four with an 8.2, 8.3 second gap ahead of Lucas UK. So Ben doesn't really need to look to pass Lucas UK on track. He doesn't have a penalty of his own. He knows he's going to inherit that one. And if he tries to make a move and it doesn't go right, then maybe that's going to open the door for Sven Zerner, who's looking pretty racy behind. So I would be careful if I was Ben Saboconi at this stage. I'd be looking just to secure my hold on 5th once everything is sorted out across the line.
Something I want to bring up as well is you talked about how the gap between Joni Tormela and Danny Haddad was staying constant, but it is not constant between Danny Haddad and Alessio Di Capua. Ben Saboconi looking for the move on Lucas UK. He'll sweep down the inside, and those soft tires, I think, are done and dusted. And down the inside will go Sven Zerner as well. Can't quite find the traction to make the move stick. But going back to what I was saying up ahead, Alessio Di Capua now within a second of Danny Haddad. He was over 1.5 seconds behind about 4 or 5 laps ago, but he has reeled him in so much. The hard tires are in such a better condition than those 18-lap-old mediums of Danny Haddad.
Yeah, and it's impressive that Joni Tormela is sticking within the DRS range of Alvaro Carreton at this stage, but you know, with the tyres making that much of a difference, he's teetering on the very edge of that DRS range now. I think the chances of Joni Tormela getting past Alvaro Carreton have long gone in this race. And Alvaro Carreton should just be able to bring this one home to victory, but Alessio Di Capua might be able to snag himself a spot on the podium. He was on pole position for the race. He had been hoping for better than just 4th, probably hoping for better than just 3rd, to be honest, but he might still be able to claim at least that. And his first podium of the season. Daniel Haddad, after letting a podium slip last time out with wheel issues, will not be keen to allow his countryman through on him to steal that podium away, because he will be wanting his first of the season as well, when he will really feel that he should have had it last time out at the US Grand Prix short.
And you can see how much of right now Sven Zerner and Patrick Crouch are really pushing the amount of lockups into turn 1 from this 4-car group. Ben Saboconi now starting to pull away from Lucas UK. Let's see if he can get to over a second ahead, as Patrick Crouch will be searching for any way past Sven Zerner right now, but he's still in the exact same situation as before. 5% ERS, he has nothing in the energy tank. Lucas UK running a little bit wider through turn 9. But that won't give Sven Zerner enough of a chance. Look at Crouch. He's trying to take that wide line, that late apex, but he just has that little moment with the back end. And again, it's going to be so difficult for him to find a way through.
That's the rough thing about turn 11, is it feels like it should be that type of corner where you can take a really deep line in, sharply turn left and get yourself a really nice exit. But speaking of nice exit, here's Alessio Di Capua, who's got a great run out of the final corner, and across the line they go, and it's Alessio Di Capua up in the third, around the outside of Daniele Haddad, who tried his hardest to brake as late as he possibly could, but could not keep the Ferrari driver behind, and Alessio Di Capua, with the power of the prancing horse, moves up in the third.
Yep, final lap of the race as well here, Jacob. Alvaro Carreton 2 seconds ahead of Joni Tormala. Alessio Di Capua should have this podium in the bag. Is there anything that is happening in this four-way battle? Ben Sabaconi now 7/10 ahead of Lucas UK. Will Patrick Kutij or Sven Zerner try anything crazy, anything desperate in the final moments of the race? We'll have to wait and see. They're right on the tail of the Red Bull, and down the inside goes Sven Zerner. He has a look down the inside of Lucas UK. He'll have DRS side by side now on the run down into turn 12. We said he needed something desperate. He pulls it off as well. Alvaro Carreton will win the second round of the season, but back to the action. Sven Zerner has secured a P6. Lucas UK with a time penalty will drop behind Patrick Kutij, maybe behind Getone as well, depending on how many time penalties he has.
Just wait to see Getone come across the line there, but nope. Getone will just have to settle for 9th. Falconardi in 10th to take the last spot, but falling well down the order with a whole host of penalties for the Spaniard. And a different Spaniard takes his place in the form of Pablo Joglar, who we did not get to speak about too much after the opening stage of the race when he was holding up a few of the drivers. But managing to claim a point at the very end there. He'll be happy with that in the McLaren. And in fact, the game's given him driver of the day, which isn't necessarily something I would agree with here. But nevertheless, nice to have some recognition.
Yeah, nice to have some recognition. I'm sure Pablo Ogla will be happy to have that recognition. But speaking of driver of the day, Jacob, who do you think we give it to?
It's a tough one, in all honesty. I think it's hard to say there are any real stand-up performances. I think I'm going to give it to Alvaro Carreton, because I think that going onto the medium tyres, Joni Tormala had a lot of very good chances to get past Carreton, and Alvaro was just able to hold the gap to him well enough while he had the worst tyres, until the point where his tyres, his hard tyres, really came into the zone, and then he was able to just control the lead from there. Ben Sabaconi did a great job starting 10th and making his way up the order, but he was stuck behind Patrick Sepos for a while. Joni Tormala as well, some great moves from the Finnish driver in terms of that move around turn 4. That almost wins him driver of the day on its own, to be honest. But I'm curious, who do you think?
I don't know. I think Alvaro Carreton had an absolutely fantastic race, to be honest. I think also Alessio Di Capua did a great job, because remember, after his pit stop, the Italian was stuck right in that traffic, and there was always a car between himself and Joni Tormala. Once he got through, he was so far behind. But in the end, he managed to find a way past Danny Haddad with those hard tires. So, to be honest, I think probably for me, Alvaro Carreton or Alessio Di Capua. I think there's a straw poll out in the YouTube chat. So, if our viewers could vote for who they think is a driver of the day, that would be fantastic. But, Jacob, I think on that note, this is the point now where we wait to see if any of the drivers will be joining us for an interview. And hopefully we can get to hear their thoughts on the race. And speaking of drivers joining us, Alvaro Carreton and Sven Zerner have jumped in to the call with us. Alvaro, congrats on the race win. You seem to have that one pretty well controlled from the start of the race, really.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good night, everyone. Yeah, it was a shame that I didn't get the pole. Only 20,000. And then, yeah, I had a bit more pace than yeah, wait.
One
thing Capua, sorry. Yeah, I forgot his name,
That's
sorry.
right.
I had more pace, I overtook him, and then, yeah, controlled the race. Yeah.
One thing that we did notice was Danny Beresne was a bit desynced for us. Was he desynced for you, and was the car causing any issues before he retired?
Not really. I didn't have anything with him. In my screen, it was everything okay. So, unfortunate for him.
We also noticed a bit of a split strategy from the top of 5 or 6 drivers. Some opting for the mediums to go to the end, some going for the hards. What was your thought on, mediums versus hards?
Yeah, obviously medium was faster in the laps from 15 to 30 something, but it was slower at the end of the race. So in the case I was third or fourth, I would have gone to the mediums and been more aggressive. But I was first, so I was confident I could keep the medium guys behind me. And yeah, everything went good.
Okay. Jacob, do you have any questions for Alvaro?
No, I think I covered everything I would have had to ask, to be honest. So,
Well, Alvaro, thank you very much for joining us, and congrats on picking up the win, which I think sees you move to the top of the standings.
Thank you.
Jacob, would you like to speak with our P6 driver, Sven Zerner?
yeah, for sure. So, Sven, first, I think I got to ask you about the incident, right? We saw you facing the wrong way after a contact with Alessio Di Capua. How did you see that from your end?
Yes, I was in a group with four guys in front of me before the pit stops, and a big opportunity because nobody was behind me. So I did a massive overcut, lap 15 I think it was, and then I had fresh mediums and was trying for the win. As soon as I saw Alessio on hards, I knew, okay, easy pass. I mean, no sense to block now. I had 2 or 3 lap fresher mediums, and he completely shut the door. And yeah, in that moment was no way I could go anymore.
And then after you'd had that incident, was it hard to keep your head down? And because you still had some good pace thereafter, you were able to recover some positions. Were you still really in it? And what did you think of the rest of the race after that point?
Yeah, for sure. In that moment, there are going a lot of emotions, but you have to keep calm, press everything together, and do like a new race, like you was all the time in P6 or P8 or whatever I was in that moment, and do a new race.
Well, the new race certainly went quite well for you in the end after that point. So congratulations on that one. And then thinking about qualifying as well, I remember you mentioning it at our first round. You were very, very unhappy with the way your qualifying went. How did you feel about it today?
Times I did in qualifying were different. Sometimes I did 0.4, sometimes I did 0.9. So I knew it's not always be on point for me. So yeah, 7.8. It's okay. I think that the field was very strong in the qualifying. So yeah, this is what it is. For next time, I will be better prepared, and then yeah.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing it. And that's all the questions from me. Milky, any further from you?
No, nothing from me there. Thank you, Sven, very much for joining us, and best of luck in your next race.
Thanks.
We also have P2 driver Joni Tormala with us. Joni, well, that seemed an absolutely crazy race from you. First off, you went for, I think, the undercut on Alvaro. You went for the medium tires. How tricky was it? Because you came out in a group of about 3-4 cars, all on old tires. How tricky was it here at Zandvoort to find a way past them despite having the fresher rubber?
Yeah, hey. Yeah, it was actually really tricky, and I think I would have got ahead of the traffic if I didn't get stuck in the pits. But yeah, it was really hard to make the overtakes, even though you're so much faster. The track is so narrow and there's not many straights to overtake on, so it was really hard.
And I've got to ask you as well, because when Jacob and I saw you move around the outside of turn 4, I think for us that was already instantly the best move of the race. Talk us through that overtake.
Do you mean the one on Alessio?
Yes.
Yeah, I was kind of planning that because I knew something like that could happen. That the guy with the old tires goes really slow on the apex, and I have the fresh medium, so I might be able to take advantage. But yeah, it went just as I planned, really. Nothing more to add.
Jacob, do you have any questions for Joni?
Yeah, so after you got out of the traffic, after you'd come into the pit zone, when it was just you behind Alvaro, towards the end of the race, when he was on those hard tires, when you were on the mediums, did you feel you could have got up to him and passed him at any point, or were you always just struggling to hang on in DRS? I mean, do you think the opportunity was there for you to win this race?
I think the opportunity would have been the pit stops, but when I lost so much time there, it was kind of impossible. So I was just trying to stay behind him and stay away from Daniele's car, so he wouldn't get the DRS. And it worked in the end. Then, like with 2 laps to go, I got to the puncture territory, so I just slowed down and took it easy to not get the puncture on my fronts.
All right. Well, yeah, that plan at least went perfectly for you. So congratulations on your P2.
Thanks.
We have Alessio Di Capua here as well, and Alessio, Yoni was just talking about how he was able to break that 1 second gap to Daniela Haddad. How crucial was that for you to be able to find a way past the Racing Point driver and secure the podium? I think Alessio is having some issues because we cannot hear him right now. So we'll give Alessio some time to sort out his mic, and hopefully we can get a word for him. But Jacob, going back again, I talked about it a little bit in the middle of the race, but I didn't think there was going to be much overtaking. We talked about how difficult it would be to overtake, but these guys just completely proved us wrong.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that sounds. There's signs of life there.
Hello, Alessio. I think we hear you now. Yes.
Okay. Can I talk about the race now?
Yes, so we were talking about that move that you pulled on Daniela Haddad, and I mean, just talk us through it, because you were on the hard tires. You must have known that come towards the end of the race, you'd be that little bit quicker than him.
Yeah, the first parts for me are that the Daniela Haddad tires were gone, and the hot tires instead on the last lap starting to give the better performance, and they get to take his DRS and overtaking in the last lap, because I also see that he was having some problem during the exit of the corner, because I was seeing him a little bit of the rally in the exit of the corner, and but the negative points, the crucial for the race are after the pit, when I stayed blocked behind the German drivers, which is really hard. In particular, when I see him tired, in that moment I say, why? And in that moment I lost a little bit time on the first three, the top three, but with the problems at the end of the race of Daniele, the styles, I managed at least to take a good podium, a good result, and in general a good race from the qualifying quick pole, and the race pace with soft not great, but I think that I managed
Well, Alessio,
to do better with the hard times. Yes?
well, Alessio, thank you very much for joining us, and grande gare, in bocca al lupo per Austria.
Grazie. Thanks.
Thank you, Alessio. Jacob, I think that is pretty much all that we have time for. Any final words before we wrap things up?
No, I just want to say I'm like you. I'm happy with the level of overtaking we got today, and I think it was a really great race and a great way to follow up from the US Grand Prix short as well. So both races so far this season have been pretty good ones.
Yeah, indeed the case. We're going to be back next weekend, next Sunday, for round 3 of the championship in Austria. I've been Yusuf Milky Serial bin Sahel. You can catch me on Twitter at MilkySerial73. Jacob, where can people find you?
You can find me at J Hancock's Caster.
And from myself and from Jacob, we wish you a very good night. Stay fast. We'll see you next week.